Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the MCAT and some tips that I have with my own experience on the best way to go about it. So as I said in my first video, I'm not going to be talking about scores for the MCAT, but we will talk about like my study schedule, what I feel worked best, and then just like resources and stuff like that. So first of all, you have to find what's going to work best for you. So find a class, so there's classes, there's tutoring, self-study, that's fine too, but then also make sure that you find a set of books that works well for you. I had Kaplan books and TPR, and I think TPR is Princeton Review. I think the Princeton Review books worked out better. I just liked the way they put together the information better than the Kaplan books. I also took a class with Kaplan, and the classes in my opinion are good if you need to find a way to take the test, but if you're looking for more of like a I need to know the material type of thing, then I wouldn't suggest the classes. I would just suggest self-studying. Even if you do decide to self-study, there are a lot of resources available to make that easy for you. My second time taking the MCAT, I self-studied, and I think it was a great tool because I was able to set a study schedule that made it easier for me. Besides having your books, you have AAMC resources, which you need, practice full lengths, and they have questions and stuff on there. They also have a set of flashcards you can order. I mean, you can always just make your own flashcards, but there's Khan Academy, which has tons and tons of stuff. Then there's this resource I found kind of late in my own MCAT studying, and I wish I would have found it earlier. She's called Leah Forsyth, and I'm pretty sure she also does classes and or tutoring, so that would be something to look into. But she does do a lot of free videos. I think she has a YouTube channel too, so I watched a lot of her videos too for help with like chem and stuff. And then there's UWorld. I highly recommend UWorld if anything else. I mean, you obviously need practice materials. Like I said, I had the Kaplan, and then when I did the self-study, I did UWorld practice questions and next step practice tests because they're very important. But those are just some things that I have found. And not a lot of people know about Leah Forsyth or UWorld, and I think that those are very important. And I think that really helped the second time around when I was doing my self-studying. The first time I took the MCAT, I got a stomach bug, and I don't know what caused it, but the day of my MCAT I was literally vomiting like my soul up in the parking lot. It was really gross. Sorry, TMI maybe, but that's just like another little thing. Just make sure the day before your MCAT you don't eat anything out of the ordinary. Like I think before my second MCAT I kind of just cooked at home, and it was just stuff I know that I like to eat. I did not for a couple of days before that because I was terrified. But a tip that I have for you is to stay organized. For me, that meant having a planner, which I don't have on me, and I had a notebook for notes and a notebook for questions. So the first time I took my MCAT, I had one notebook for everything, and I separated it by subject. So it was like chem notes and then chem questions, and bio notes and then bio questions, which is fine, really. Like that's how most people do it. But personally, I felt like it was better to have one book for notes and one book for questions and practice. The reason I say that is because there's gonna come a time where you want to review the stuff in your notebook, and you shouldn't be writing everything down in your notebook anyways. It should just be really like high yield stuff that you think you're gonna forget, or you notice when you were testing that you forgot, so you go through that subject and you're gonna write that stuff down. Like this was my notebook, and as you can see, I only used like 3/4 of the notebook. I didn't even use the whole thing, and I studied for 3 months. And this book was all questions. So practice questions on UWorld went in here, cars questions went in here, because there's not really stuff for you to write down for cars, so that didn't have a place in here. But like, see, cars, TPR, and then I have those questions there. UWorld GChem test 1, because you can create your own thing. So I tried to write down like my work, and then if I got something wrong, I tried to put in here why it was wrong and show how it was right. And in here, like I said, just notes. So if I were going through GChem, I would go through the whole book, and if I had notes, I would say like chapter 1 TPR GChem, and then write my notes. And I like color coordinating things because I think it helps. So this one is bio, but you have the idea. And then at the end of each section of each chapter, no matter what book you have, there's usually a set of questions. I highly suggest you do those questions, and if you find yourself doing bad on those, go back and just study that material for a little bit, because you want to make sure you know what you're doing before you move on. So those were the only things I wrote in here, because since I had written notes for it, I was like, okay, these are just quick questions. There shouldn't be any more than like 5 or 6. So you see, I wrote them here because they pertain to the chapter. But anything else I did was in there. I just found that this helped, like I said, when I was reviewing. And then if I had like, okay, I remember I did a practice question on this and I can't remember what I wrote. I just went to here and found the subjects that had chem, and I was like, okay, so chem, oh, here it is. And there's not a lot in here. I mean, there is, but relatively not compared to this book, because if I had to find something in this book, like, it took me a lot of work, because there's a lot of stuff just jammed into this book. It's like the book of everything, and I just don't feel like one notebook is what you need for MCAT. I also suggest spacing out your testing schedules, as first thing you're going to take is a diagnostic, and I highly suggest that because it kind of gives you a baseline as to where you're going. So it's not going to be high. Nobody's diagnostic score is high, but it gives you somewhere to go. So when you take test 2, 3, 4, 5, you see how you're increasing. And even if you don't, that's okay. It happens. Sometimes you do better on test 2 than you did on test 4, but then you do great on your MCAT and it'll be okay. What I did for the test is, those were its own thing. So for example, this one's like FL, which is full length, number 2 from next step. And first section on the MCAT is chem. So I wrote chem, and then I would go through the questions I got wrong. If I felt like it was something like very important or something I just wasn't getting, I would write down definitions or charts, whatever would help me the next time. And I would go through the whole test. It's probably gonna take you like half of a day to a day. So you're gonna go through the whole test. And now all of this is just for full length number 2 for next step. And then after I did that, I broke each subject down by topic. So when you have the practice test, most of the time they're gonna give you a breakdown. Like this one says water, kinematics, and force. So my issues on this one were solubility, which is water, and kinematic and force. And then I would write how many questions I got wrong. Oh, and this was just because now I can see, okay, this is a troubled area for me if I have not reviewed it, because next step practice test 2 I probably did like the first month of me studying, so I might have needed to review it still. So that's for me to guide myself and see like, okay, I haven't reviewed it, but now when I do review it, these shouldn't be wrong as much. So it's kind of just like a guide for yourself. And I kept them separate just because it was easier for me when I went back and I was looking at like my scores on the practice test, that I could just pull one out and be like, oh yeah, test 2, here we go. I didn't study with anybody, my second one, if that's going to be anybody's question, but I also suggest practicing doing a formula sheet. So this is my formula sheet. It's kind of messed up because I used to practice it like every day. I base this off of, one thing Kaplan does have is they have this like book, I think TPR has it too, and it has a whole bunch of equations and stuff. It's like the fast sheet or quick sheets or something. So I have on here kinematics section, work and energy, a thermo, fluids, electrostatic, circuits, whatever. And I practiced doing this every day for the last 2 weeks before my MCAT. To plan and keep a schedule. So I had a planner, which I cannot find now, and I probably got rid of it just because post MCAT you kind of want to like purge everything. Now I'm regretting it, but whatever. In the schedule I would do, one day was going to be bio and psych. So you want to like plan a schedule, as in, for me, saying like, okay, I'm gonna do chapters 1 through 2 in bio, it didn't work for me that way. What worked best was like, okay, Monday, when I study, it's gonna be a bio day. And my study schedule was a little weird when I self-studied because I was working. So I had split shifts 3 days of the week, which means I worked from 6:45 to 8:15, and then around like 8:30, 8:45, I was at Starbucks until 1 o'clock. I would take a lunch break, go back to work at 2:30 till 6, and then I was done for the day. And then Saturday and Sunday, I didn't work weekends, so I studied from 8 to 5. And the days that I didn't have a split shift, I just studied until I had to go to work from 8 to 2 or whatever. So, okay, Monday I wake up, I'm doing bio because my planner says I'm doing bio. So I'm just gonna hammer out what I can for bio. Realistically, you're not gonna be able to get through like 5 chapters in a day. And if you can, then you really know your stuff and good for you. But for me, I think it was about 2 or 3 chapters average. So I'm gonna go through those, read through the chapter, and then like I said in the priors, if there are high yield things that you feel like you're not going to remember, or something really important like primary structure and bio, oh, I can't remember primary structure, which one is denatured, okay, what structure is denatured, I can't remember that, let me write that down. So I would go through like, okay, this is primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary, and what gets, when the protein gets denatured, what structures get denatured, and I would write that down because that's something, that's just an example, and that's high yield because you're gonna have to know that stuff. And then right before I would finish, I would make sure that each day I was doing at least 2 to 3 CARS passages to practice. Not only timing, but like our mindsets get so focused on science that you have to remind yourself that CARS are easy points, because CARS answers are in the passages. Like you just have to really read and understand what is being asked of you, but it's right there, unlike our bios and our chems. So sometimes we tend to overthink CARS. So I think practicing CARS like at least 5 days of your studying is very, very important. And in planning and scheduling, like I said, I would go to work, and when I would come home from work, it would be like 6 to 6:30, and that's it. I was done for the day. So if I wanted to go to the gym, I'm going to the gym. If I wanted to lay down and do nothing and watch TV, that's what I did. It's really important that you kind of take time for yourself. The weekends that I didn't work, by 5 o'clock I was done. That's it. Like I'm not doing anything else. So I had time to like hang out with friends, like go out, whatever. When I first took my MCAT, it's a lot different for me because I was in school. I was all over the place and I didn't set a schedule, and I was studying like from the morning until I would lay down and go to sleep. And it can drain you. So I suggest if you are going to school, you definitely have to put that in your planner and say like, okay, I have a test coming up, so I have to dedicate this much time to Orgo this day, and then I'm gonna dedicate the rest of my day to MCAT, and space it out that way, but still give yourself some time to like breathe. And lastly, something that I think is really important, that's not really like a paper tip, is your mindset. You have to be really positive throughout this whole thing, because if not, it'll come down on you. So there were times where I did one full length and I did so great and I was so happy, and then the next one came and it dropped a couple points, and that's okay, because you're learning. So it dropped a couple points, now I have to figure out why it dropped a couple points so that next time that doesn't happen again. Don't beat yourself up too hard, because if you do, it's going to be hard to bring it back up. It's really your mindset when you're taking this test. Yes, you have a lot of information, but you still have to remain like positive and say you got this, and know that you got this, because if not, it's going to be it's already grueling and it's going to be a lot worse. So that's a big thing. That will conclude this video. I kind of feel like I just rambled and I didn't really give you guys like a lot of information, but if you have questions, please leave them in the comments. This is awkward. Oh, you're not gonna be able to hear me. Perfect. Next tip is, if I just work. Why do I keep saying work?